Can you guys hear me?
Hi.
Okay, good. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Super weird. So yeah, the whole intro just froze on my side. Oh, hold on.
Oh, no. Yeah,
So
I
I
saw the
can
intro. It was really good.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm glad it all worked out because now I think I'm in business. So happy Saturday, everyone. How's it going? Just turn my volume up.
I'm putting a little bit of makeup on while I'm on
Well, we
the
talk.
little makeup.
Sounds good. So, hey, Queen Bella, Silent Angel, Okie Crime News, K Braze, Zero Jules. Glad you could make it. I think this is a way better time for you than the last one. Steph B, Jen, SoFlo, that's you. Kit, hey, what's up? Hey, Jeannie, hey, Jenny.
Look
All
at all
right.
these cool people in here.
I know. Hey, Emmy, Freak Snake.
What's everybody doing this Saturday? Anything
Oh,
fun?
I am not. I'm gonna be crafting. I have to do some things for my I'm making my family some things. We're going down to visit them, so I gotta
Oh,
get all
yeah.
that taken care of. Um, but other than that, just hanging out.
You're a
I
busy
know
bee.
no, just busy.
Not a bee.
Yeah, just busy. All right, guys. So make sure you take the poll, which is actually getting me kind of excited because it looks like a lot of people have not heard about this case.
This case is crazy.
This case is so did you listen to Serial when it first came out? Do you
No,
remember?
I just listened to it now when you told me about it.
So
Now
you
I'm
hadn't
hooked.
heard about it before?
I've heard about it, but I've never
Okay,
gotten into it until you told me to do
gotcha.
it.
Okay. So first thoughts, like first reaction, like just going through it for the first time.
I think it's very confusing for a true crime case. There's a lot of players, there's a lot of stories, um, there's a lot of uncertainty
Yes,
as far as the the players' stories go, their alibis and stuff. So
for sure.
I feel
And
like that's
oh,
kind
sorry.
of my biggest pull from it all is like I'm like, what?
Right.
How does this
And
happen?
I think that was my first reaction too. And so once I finished Serial, I was like, wait a second. Like this can't be how this ends. Nothing makes sense. So I started, as one does, researching everything I could find about this case. So we're going to meet somebody in. So, first of all, we're going to go through Serial. It's 12 episodes. So I'm hoping we can go through each episode together and kind of just talk about what we think. Just because, like SoFlo said, this case will leave you with more questions than answers, I feel. But Serial just scratches the surface on this. After I listened to Serial, I listened to another podcast that Rabia Chowdhury did. She was Adnan's probably biggest advocate through this whole situation. Um, and their podcast goes so deep into all the crazy little like it's even hard to explain. Just little things that they found um that basically would, like, change the outcome of this case in a
Somebody's
minute.
life too,
Yeah,
like that's the
for
biggest
sure.
thing for me is like, wow,
Hey,
coulda, shoulda,
Jonesy.
woulda.
And I do wanna say that we will be talking about Adnan a lot. The victim of this murder was Hae Min Lee, but I believe in, wrongful convictions. they're creating more victims than getting justice for the one we should have been, focusing on from the get-go. But that is just how I feel. So I will, let's see. So I made it like a quick slideshow that's going to go through. Well, first we'll probably just look at the first slide so you can see who this case is about. So let's see. Okay. So this, oh my gosh, I know generally Jenny. So yeah, Crime Weekly did a billion part um series on this. I did listen to that in its entirety. I did have some issues, I won't lie, just because there were a lot of things that were left out when they covered it. So that was kind of yeah, my issue with that. So, like I said, this is about a murder that happened in 1999. Hae Min Lee, and then Adnan Syed, who was, I believe, wrongly convicted for 23 years for her murder with zero evidence, zero physical evidence, literally one person's story. And we know how stories can run rampant around here.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I had a big problem with the fact that he was convicted based on one person's story. Mind you, there are some cell records, which we'll get into a little bit later, but there are, theories about that.
There's no real evidence, which is kind of hard for me to accept,
Exactly.
you know.
Yes. Yep. Because with me, I want evidence. I want, Kit, this
Concrete
was
if you're
in,
going to put somebody away, you know.
yes. So this takes place in Baltimore. So a suburb outside Baltimore called Woodlawn. And this happened in 1999. So let's see. Okay, so it all starts with Adnan and Hay and kind of their relationship. So just keep these dates in mind. So December 1998, Adnan Syed and Hae Min Lee and their relationship. And this is all in high school. So think about high school relationships that you've had yourself. So their relationship was kept secret, but because of both religious and cultural differences. And then they broke up in December of that year. And then so January 1st, 1999, Hay goes on her first date with a new boyfriend, um, named Don, who is the manager at the store she works at left for Lens Crafters. And then Hay goes missing on January 13th. So we are gonna, kind of talk about some throwbacks to 1999. You will hear pagers mentioned, which is a definite throwback. Did you have a pager, so Flo?
I had a pager and then a Nextel.
Yes, I did. I had
Remember
a
the
next.
Nextels? It would be a beep
Yes,
beep beep beep.
Metros and Trippers.
Yes. Oh
Oh,
my
alrighty.
gosh.
So we are gonna start with the first episode of Serial, so you guys can kind of see how this case captivated a lot of people when it first came out. I think it came out in 2014 because, yeah, they mentioned it was 15 years later. So, 15 years after this all happened, there was a reporter that got a hold of this story, was asked to look into it, and it just kind of blew up from there. So, are you guys ready? The music always gives me the chills.
Oh, I'm ready. I love the music.
This is a global CalLink prepaid call from
Adnan Syed.
an inmate at a Maryland correctional facility.
From This American Life and WBEZ Chicago, it's Serial, one story told week by week. I'm Sarah Koenig.
I can't hear aymackk.
Oh gosh, sorry, I muted myself. So we are going to critique some of the things that Sarah Koenig does in this story, just because she will say she's not a crime reporter, she's not a detective, but she does get a little too involved, I think. Do you kind of feel
100%. Yeah,
okay,
but I think I was trying to think like, how would I feel if I was involved? And
right?
I feel like it would be really hard to try to
Separate
emotionally separate. Yeah.
for sure, definitely. Okay,
She was dead by 2:36, undignified.
sorry, I just jumped forward. I'm actually gonna do 1.5.
This is a global tel link prepaid call from
Adnan Syed.
an inmate at a
Oh, that's
Maryland Correctional
look
Facility.
at this.
From This American Life and WBEZ Chicago, it's Serial. One story told week by week. I'm Sarah Koenig. For the last year, I've spent every working day trying to figure out where a high school kid was for an hour after school one day in 1999. Or if you want to get technical about it, and apparently I do, where a high school kid was for 21 minutes after school one day in 1999.
Okay, imagine that. Imagine trying to think of a day in high school, just a random day after school, and trying to account for 21 minutes.
I can't imagine when she was going through and doing all these interviews and people were saying the responses. I was like, I believe I would have the same response. Like, you have no
Right?
clue. I was out of high school over 25 years ago.
Right.
Like, that's crazy. I can't
And
remember what I did yesterday.
I was gonna say, so I Googled 6 weeks ago from today. That was, I think now, it was it February 30th? I think it's February 29th or March 1st. So I think about like, what were you doing, on March 1st for 21 minutes? I wouldn't be able to tell you.
No clue.
This search sometimes feels undignified on my part. I've had to ask about teenagers' sex lives, where, how often, with whom, about notes they passed in class, about their drug habits, their relationships with their parents. And I am not a detective or a private investigator. I'm not even a crime reporter. But yes, every day this year, I've tried to figure out the alibi of a 17-year-old boy. Before I get into why I've been doing this, I just want to point out something I'd never really thought about before I started working on this story. And that is, it's really hard to account for your time in a detailed way.
So, like we were talking about, she says it's hard to account for your time in a detailed way. So she'll go through some examples, and actually talk to some people that are around the age of the people that were in this story. And I'm sorry if you guys hear all these motorcycles. I'm gonna mute myself because they're really loud.
I mean, how'd you get to work last Wednesday, for instance? Drive, walk, bike? Was it raining? Are you sure? Did you go to any stores that day? If so, what did you buy? Who did you talk to? The entire day, name every person you talked to. It's hard. Now imagine you have to account for a day that happened 6 weeks back, because that's a situation in the story I'm working on, in which a bunch of teenagers had to recall a day 6 weeks earlier. And it was 1999, so they had to do it without the benefit of texts or Facebook or Instagram. Just for a lark, I asked some teenagers to try it.
Do you remember what you did on that Friday?
No. Not at all. I can't remember anything.
Wait, nothing?
No, I can't remember anything that far back.
So you can kind of see that she's like, "Do you remember what you were doing?" And they're all laughing like, no." And I highlighted Silent Angel's comment because 99 was your senior year of high school. All of these kids are seniors in 99. So, this would be a really good from your perspective. Hey, sinner. All right. Let's keep going.
I'm pretty sure I was in school. I think. No?
That's Tyler. He's 18. I asked my nephew, Sam. He's 18 too.
Not a clue. In school, probably. I would be in school. Actually, I think I worked that day. No, yeah, I worked that day, and I went to school. That was about it.
Actually, on second thought,
I don't think I went to school that day.
So see how even just him back and forth, he's like, "Wait, did I work that day? No, maybe I did." So our memories are not, you know, they're not made to hold on to this kind of information. I mean, some of our memories do, but I don't mind doing it.
Especially if like you are going through something at a particular time. I feel like if you're going through something in your life that's like stressful or emotional, I for myself have a tendency like, and high school is stressful. When you're a senior in high school, you're getting ready to graduate, you're thinking about college and where you're going and blah 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 blah. And I feel like the more stress I have on me, the less I remember. It like blocks it out.
Well, and in high school, everything seems just more dramatic. You
Oh
know?
yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like everything was just like more emphasized and the littlest things seemed like the biggest thing back then. So it's like the
Yeah.
pieces you would remember. Yeah, it's hard.
You
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
you went.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I definitely didn't.
Here's Sam's friend Elliot. He seemed to have better recall.
Actually, I may have gone to the movies that night later.
Do you remember what
Now
you
that
saw?
I'm thinking. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I saw 22 Jump Street.
Okay. And did you go with friends?
Yes. I went with Sam and kid Sean, Carter, a bunch of people.
Wait, Sam, my nephew Sam?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Sam says he was at work.
Oh, then it wasn't that night then.
And then see how quickly she said, well, Sam was at work. And he says, oh, well, then it wasn't that night then. That's something that I kind of just noticed because
Yeah.
one thing about this story is a lot of the people who were witnesses or gave statements, they were asked, like, why did you say this particular day? Why do you think this happened on that day? And a lot of their answers were because the police told me.
Yep.
Because the police told me it was that day. So it's
And
like,
then it's like plot twist. Like you thought it was one thing, now it's another. Now we're going in a different direction.
and
And
some
this is
kids are, yeah, and I feel like some kids are going to lean towards like what an adult would say, like, oh, they must be, like they must be right. Sometimes, not every
yeah.
kid.
Especially if they're intimidated. You don't know what the cops said to them.
Right. Yep, Kate Ray, someone can literally change your mind by asking if you're sure. It's like, I don't know. Am I sure? Okay, so in this next part, Sarah's gonna go into kind of why she did this exercise.
One kid did actually remember pretty well because it was the last day of state testing at his school, and he'd saved up to go to a nightclub. That's the main thing I learned from this exercise, which is no big shocker, I guess, is that if some significant event happened that day, you remember that, plus you remember the entire day much better. If nothing significant happened, then the answers get very general. I most likely did this, or I most likely did that. These are words I've heard a lot lately. Here's the case I've been working on. Almost 15 years ago, on January 13th, 1999, a girl named Hae Min Lee disappeared. She was a senior at Woodlawn High School in Baltimore County in Maryland. She was Korean, she was smart and beautiful and cheerful and a great athlete. She played field hockey and lacrosse. And she was responsible. Right after school, she was supposed to pick up her little cousin from kindergarten and drop her home, but she didn't show. That's when Haley's family knew something was up, when the cousin's school called. About a month later, on February 9th, Hayes' body was found in a big park in Baltimore, really a rambling forest. A maintenance guy who said he'd stopped to take a leak on his way to work discovered her there. He'd noticed a bit of her black hair poking out of a shallow grave. The cause of death was manual strangulation, meaning someone did it with their hands. A couple weeks after that, so 6 weeks after she first went missing, Hayes' ex-boyfriend, a guy named Adnan Syed, was arrested for her murder. He's been in prison ever since.
Okay, so now we're kind of at, the heart of the story-ish. Hae Min Lee went missing on January 13th, 1999. February, I think they said 9th, her body was found in Leakin Park, which is kind of like, I want to say like Central Park-ish in New York, where it's like a huge park. But more of like a foresty type situation. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Canada, but it reminds me of Stanley Park in Vancouver. That place is crazy. So a little bit of news, just because this isn't a spoiler, because this news is everywhere, I feel like, if you've been looking into this case at all. Adnan Syed is right now out of prison. I believe he was released in 2021, or was it last year? Let me do a little Goog search.
I think you're right. I think it's 2021.
Adnan Syed released. Oh no, so he was released, sorry, September of 2022. I think he served 23 years, but a new initiative I know that they're doing in some states. Hey, Evil Queen Yaya. Where if like juveniles that were convicted and have served more than so many years, they get to have their case reviewed by a board. And then while it was being reviewed, they found some stuff that basically forced him to get released. As of right now, his conviction, and I think this is the first time this has ever happened to somebody that has been exonerated, his conviction was reinstated because of an appeal that was filed on behalf of the victim's family, which I believe they they have the right to be heard. But the brother basically filed an appeal because he said he wasn't given enough notice to get to the hearing. So based on that, Adnan's conviction was reinstated. So just FYI. Yep, so that is something that gets mentioned later in the it might have been this episode or the episode about Lincoln Park, but someone says, "Well, you're burying your body in Lincoln Park, you'll find someone else's body." Which is not funny, but that just kind of says how that park is. It's known for, I guess, dead bodies. Alrighty. So, let's continue.
I first heard about this story more than a year ago when I got an email from a woman named Rabia Chowdhury. Rabia knows Adnan pretty well. Her younger brother Saad is Adnan's best friend. And they believe he's innocent. Rabia was writing to me because way back when, I used to be a reporter for the Baltimore Sun, and she'd come across some stories I'd written about a well-known defense attorney in Baltimore who'd been disbarred for mishandling client money. That attorney was the same person who defended Adnan, her last major trial, in fact.
Okay, so now we've reached Christina Gutierrez, which was Adnan's attorney. She was disbarred. Let me see what year. May 24th, 2001, she was disbarred. So I believe Adnan was convicted in 2001. And so yeah, she had mishandled clients' money. She had basically like said, "Oh, I need this much money for this like expert witness," and then, there'd be no expert witness, or she would need money to get something filed and then it would never get filed. So already there, is issues with his counsel, I guess, so to speak.
Rabia told me she thought the attorney botched the case. Not just botched it, actually, but threw the case on purpose so she could get more money for the appeal. The lawyer had died a few years later. She'd been sick. Rabia asked if I would please just take a look at Adnan's case. I don't get emails like this every day, so I thought, sure, why not? I read a few newspaper clips about the case, looked up a few trial records, and on paper, the case was like a Shakespearean mashup. Young lovers from different worlds, thwarting their families, secret assignations, jealousy, suspicion, and honor besmirched. The villain, not a Moor exactly, but a Muslim all the same. And a final act of murderous revenge. And the main stage, a regular old high school across the street from a 7-Eleven.
Hi, are you Rabia? Hi. Am I saying your name correctly? Rabia. Okay.
I went to go see Rabia. She was surrounded by paper, files, loose stacks, binders, some crappy looking boxes, all court documents and attorney's files from Adnan's case. Some of the papers were warped and discolored.
Why do they look wet? They look wet.
These have been damaged because these.
She explained that it was because the boxes had been in her car on and off for 15 years. Rabia is a lawyer herself. She mostly does immigration stuff. Her office takes up the corner of a much larger open space that I think is a Pakistani travel agency, though it's hard to tell. It's in this little strip mall. Across the parking lot, there's a new Pakistani restaurant, an African evangelical church, an Indian clothing shop, a convenience store. On the sidewalk outside, I found a teeny weeny bag of marijuana. Baltimore County is like this, at least on the west side. It's where a lot of middle class and working class people go, many immigrants included, to get their kids out of the badass city, though the badass city is close by. Rabia is 40. She's short and she's got a beautiful round face framed by hijab.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts, just because how Sarah describes Rabia, so very true. Rabia is amazing. I think her podcast has gotten like 13 wrongful convictions overturned. Well, not like her podcast, but she brought light to, I think, 13 wrongful convictions or something like that.
It
Adnan
was
being one
quite
of
a
them.
few, and it's quite remarkable that she's doing that work because it's hard work to dig into
I
those
know.
cases.
For sure. And emotionally straining, I imagine, especially because, I mean, like you said, you get invested in these situations, and especially when you feel like you're trying to save someone's life, um, you know, it would get
Well,
very
and to have the sight to, have the ability to reverse an injustice. I mean, just think about that, like what it has on, everyone involved. I mean, that's a huge thing.
yeah, to get someone their life back, especially somebody
Yeah.
that's been in prison since, like, Adnan got arrested when he was 17 years old.
17, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like his
He's a child,
life. Yeah.
essentially,
Yep.
to get his life back. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, he basically grew up in prison. It's very
Yeah.
sad.
She's adorable looking, but you definitely shouldn't mess with her. She's very smart and very tough, and she could crush you. Her
Hell
brother
yeah.
Saad was at Rabia's office too the first time I went. He's 33, mortgage broker, more laid back than Rabia. They told me about Adnan Syed, their friend. Not just a good kid, but an especially good kid. Smart, kind, goofy, handsome. So that when he's arrested for murder, so many people who knew him were stunned.
He was like the community's golden child.
Oh, really? Talk more about that.
Okay, so I'll kind of go through this. So basically Rabia was like, he was, um, she said he was a volunteer EMT, but he was actually, that was his job. He was a paid EMT. He did run on the track team. He did, like prayers at his mosque with his dad. And then he was also prince of his junior prom.
Yeah, he was super well-rounded.
Yes. Yeah. He was a part, and they'll go into this more, but him and his friends basically were a part of a magnet program at their high school, which is basically like like AP classes. They took all the college like readiness courses and things like that. So they were all very smart kids. They weren't like,
And no one really has any bad things to say about him.
yeah.
That's what I found fascinating. Like there wasn't really any character assassinations. You know what I mean? Against him.
First, yeah, nobody was like, oh, he was aggressive and he would yell at people, or,
I could
he always
definitely
was.
see this happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like never anything he ever spoke about or anything like that.
Mm.
So I'm gonna kind of fast forward a little bit. And I apologize. I tried to correct some of the closed captions, but I didn't catch them all. So some of them might be a little bit off. So let's see.
No smoking, no girls.
So then they basically go into, Adnan's parents were religious. So they basically had, rules. They couldn't date girls, no smoking, no drinking. But Adnan was a normal teenager. He drank, he smoked, he dated girls. So this is kind of a big part of the story, is that they're painting Adnan to be some sort of like bad kid. He was breaking all his parents' rules, but That's just teenagers.
Yeah, that's just the way it goes when you're growing up. Test the waters.
Yeah. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Truth Seeker. Okay, so let's see.
Girls, all that. Saad and Rabia's parents are the same way. Their families are friends. But even though Adnan and Saad and their buddies were Muslims, they were also, shall we say, healthy American teenagers who were going to do what teenagers do, so long as they didn't get caught. So Adnan had to keep his relationship with Hae secret. The state used this against him in two ways. First, they argued he'd put everything on the line, his family, his relationships at the mosque, to run around with this girl, so that when she broke up with him 8 months later, he was left with nothing, and he was outraged. He couldn't take it, and he killed her. And the second way they used it is they said, look at what a liar he is.
So I wanted to pause it there because I don't know. Go back to like I said, go back to high school in your mind. Think of a breakup. I don't know if I would have ever been in a breakup that made me think, "Oh my god, I want to end this person's life."
No, definitely not.
Right?
You usually end up being friends with the people. You know what I mean? With the person eventually.
Yeah, because they're still around. Like you still have to see them every day. Well, you don't kill them, I guess. But
Yeah.
hey, Hoodie and a Crowbar, how are you? Thanks for being here. All right,
How duplicitous. He plays the good Muslim son at home and at the mosque, but look what he was up to. Saad remembers the prosecutor's closing argument at trial.
His family didn't know that he actually drank, he smoked, he was having sex.
This was proof of bad character, someone who could be a murderer. But Saad says if Adnan's guilty of anything, it's of being a normal kid with immigrant parents.
So like the prosecution had painted Adnan as a totally like a bipolar or like a maniacal dual personality.
We all grew up with that dual personality.
It was forced. I mean, I'm the same way. I was like, they could paint the same thing because I was actually homecoming.
Oh no, Remy, I'm so sorry to hear. I'm so sorry that happened. Oh, well. Big hugs to you. We love you so much.
Homecoming king, which I don't know if my sister even knows. She did not know. So I mean, I was dating a girl that was.
Wait. And why is homecoming king bad? Is that such like a good thing?
We don't go to homecoming. We don't
because it's a dance.
It's a dance. It's a mixed gender.
So I was in the same boat. My parents, my sister, they didn't know about this at all. I mean, and right now, more than 10 years later, she's finding out. I know. I mean, I'll admit, on one side, like my family thinks I'm a virgin, but on the other hand, I play, But it's the
TMI.
Let's see that like that right.
So Assad saying, like they could say the same thing about me. I had that dual personality. I think even Robbie is like, we all grew up, with that dual personality. Okay, so let's see.
As for physical evidence, there was none.
Okay, so here's where we go into there was no physical evidence connecting Adnan to this crime. Zero.
Nothing. Apart from some fingerprints in Hae's car, which Adnan had been in many times, there was nothing linking him to the crime. No DNA, no fibers, no hairs, no matching soil from the bottom of his boots. Instead, what they had on Adnan was one guy's story, a guy named Jay. He's the third person you need to remember in this crime story, besides Hae and Adnan. Jay was a friend of Adnan's. They'd been in school together since middle school. They weren't super close, but they had mutual friends. Jay sold weed, and he and Adnan smoked together. The story Jay told police had problems because it kept changing from telling to telling. But they were able to bolster the main plot points using cell records from Adnan's phone.
Okay, so I want to kind of comment on this because Sarah says they basically had Jay's story corroborated by Adnan's phone records. However, it has been kind of discovered that so they were looking at so the cops basically got Adnan's cell records. Now this is a theory, like I said, but it was discovered by somebody that was working on the case. So I kind of take it a little bit more than just a theory. but the police basically messed up on a cell tower number. So they had to redirect themselves and change kind of the story because where they said Adnan was with his phone was nowhere near the tower that pinged, if that makes sense.
Nowhere near.
So they had to change the story in order to match the records.
Which is a
And
big
so, yes. Yes.
deal.
And so that's why they're saying that sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, so basically, so that's why the theory is that's why Jay's story changes so often because the cops had or detectives had to change the story to match the cell records because initially they had messed it up. So another reason why this case is so crazy.
Phone. By the time I left Rabia's office that first day, I understood only one thing clearly, though maybe not the thing Rabia and Syed wanted me to understand. But what I took away from the visit was, somebody is lying here. Maybe Adnan really is innocent. But what if he isn't? What if he did do it, and he's got all these good people thinking he didn't? So either it's Jay or it's Adnan, but someone is lying. And I really wanted to figure out who. In the early morning of February 28th, 1999, Adnan was arrested by...
Okay, so this is going to go into the story about how when Adnan was arrested and kind of how that went.
The Baltimore City detectives. He was asleep in his bed when they showed up at his house. They took him straight from his untidy bedroom to an interrogation room at Homicide downtown. What Adnan didn't know is that just hours before they picked him up, the cops had interviewed his friend Jay.
This is a taped interview of Jay, black male, 19.
Okay, so now they're going to go into Jay's interview. So reminder, Jay's story is the only thing that they have on Adnan. It was their whole case basically. They had Jay's story and then they corroborated it with the cell phone records.
19 years of age. We're at the offices of Homicide, specifically the Colonel's conference room.
The police recorded 2 taped interviews with Jay, and I'm going to play you the second one from a couple weeks later, only because the sound quality is much better. Just a warning that the tape is a little upsetting to hear in parts.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you know about the death of Hae Lee?
Okay. Had left out, went shopping with a friend of mine, an ex-friend of mine, Adnan. We had a conversation. During the conversation, he stated that he was going to kill that bitch, referring to Hae Lee. I took it with context. It didn't stand out my head any.
Jay says he didn't take it too seriously. The cops have him start again from the top. On the morning of the 13th, Jay says, Adnan had left school and driven to Jay's house. Jay had graduated from school the year before and was working, but not on that day. January 13th happens to be the birthday of Jay's girlfriend, Stephanie, and Jay, who didn't have his own car, needed to go buy something for her. So Adnan comes over. According to Jay, they go shopping at the mall.
What did you do then?
We left the mall. I took him to school. I dropped him off in the back of the school. He went up to class. He left his cell phone and car with me. Told me he'd call me. I went back to my friend Jen's house and waited for him to call.
Okay, now at this point, you know why he's leaving the car with you.
Yes.
Okay, so Jay's basically saying that Adnan gave him his car, said, "Here, take my car, take my cell phone. I'm gonna kill that bitch, and then I'm gonna call you. You're gonna pick me up." I get that story might be plausible, but I don't know. It just seems so crazy to like say, "Hey, I'm gonna," just out of nowhere, "I'm gonna kill this person. Can you take my car and pick me up?" Like, why would Jay even agree to that?
Exactly. And why would he say that out of nowhere? Like, no fight ensued, nothing.
Yeah, I would be like, no. It's like, I'm not, I pick you up nowhere.
And why is that?
Because he said he was going to kill Hae.
And the reason you have the car and the cell phone was why?
To pick him up from wherever he was going to do this.
Okay. And you had talked about this while you were shopping that day?
The details of the car and all.
The events, how they were going to plan out.
That day he told me, yes, he told me, I'm going to leave you with my cell phone and my car. I need you to come get me. Yes.
After
he killed Hae, yes.
Okay.
Later that afternoon, the call comes.
You received a phone call from Adnan.
Yes.
On his cell phone.
Yes.
So, Emmy, very interesting that you asked this question. Was this kid cleared? So Jay spoke to detectives. Mind you, no lawyer. They do have him on tape saying he doesn't want a lawyer. He understands, he has the right to have a lawyer, but he does no jail time. I think he gets charged with accessory after the fact, but no jail time. And he's provided with a lawyer before he's even charged.
Shady.
So, mind you, you have to get charged, and then they would provide you a public defender. Is that correct? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, well, you would have the right to an attorney. So if you can't afford one, you would be provided with a public defender. That's how it works.
Right. So he was
But you need to
provided.
have charges first. You don't just get it.
Exactly.
Before.
So, yep, before they even charged Jay with accessory after the fact, he was provided a pro bono attorney that was recommended by the lead prosecutor in Adnan's case. Gosh, Willow, stop it. Hey, Tazzy. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. So, yeah, that in itself, I think, has a lot of people that, had commented on this case said that is kind of unheard of.
Which is in your possession.
Yes.
And the conversation was what?
That bitch is dead. Come and get me. I'm at Best Buy.
Jay drives to Best Buy and sees Adnan in the parking lot.
I noticed that Hae wasn't with him. I parked next to him. He asked me to get out the car. I get out the car. He asked me, am I ready for this? And I say, ready for what? And he takes the keys. He opens the trunk. And all I can see is Hae's lips are all blue. And she's pretzeled up in the back of the trunk. And she's dead.
They leave the parking lot. Adnan's driving Hae's car with her body in the trunk. Jay is driving Adnan's car. They ditch Hae's car at the I-70 park and ride, and then, to hear Jay tell it, they just kind of tool around Baltimore County together for a while, as if not.
So, yes, Lisa. So, kind of a big part of this story is that Adnan got his cell phone, his very first cell phone, 2 days before this happened. And yeah, a lot of people didn't have cell phones. It was something that they're going to say, oh, that's why he got the cell phone was because he needed to murder somebody, which is also just caramba. I can't figure out how to get this stupid ribbon off the top. But anyways, so yeah. So basically, Jay's also saying that they're just driving around with the body in the trunk. I don't know.
I don't believe that. I mean, who would do that?
Who just drives around? Yeah, it's so.
We're just going to
his
kill
whole story.
time.
Yeah.
Just hang out.
As if nothing had happened. Buy some weed, cruise around, make some calls. After a while, Jay drives Adnan back to Woodlawn High School.
Why did you take him back to school?
He told me that I had to take him back to school because he needed to be seen there.
So was he going to a certain event?
It's practice, track practice.
Track practice.
Yeah.
So he wanted an alibi.
Yes.
He wanted to be seen by the people at track.
Yeah.
And you guys had discussed that.
He just told me that he needed to be seen. Yes. He told me that he needed to be seen at track practice.
You took him back?
Yes.
Are you having any conversation with Adnan at the time?
To the effect, yes. Don't tell anyone. He said that he couldn't believe he killed somebody with his bare hands, that all the motherfuckers referring to like hoods and thugs and stuff think they're hardcore, but he just killed a person with his bare hands.
So at this point, he's bragging about it.
Basically.
He was proud of it?
Yes.
After track practice, Jay picks Adnan up again. They drive around some more. By this time, Hae's family was worried, and they'd called the police, who in turn called a couple of Hae's friends, including Adnan. The call comes in on his cell. The cops ask if he's seen Hae or knows where she is. Jay says after the call, they drive to Jay's to get some shovels, go retrieve Hae's car from the park and ride. They drive around some more and finally end up at Leakin Park, where Adnan proceeds to bury Hae. It's evening by now, maybe 7 or 8 p.m.
And he asked me if I was going to help. And I told him, fuck no. And he starts just shoveling dirt on top of her. We leave there.
Let me stop a minute.
Yes.
You helped him dig the hole.
Yes.
How long did it take you both to dig the hole?
20, 25 minutes.
How deep did you make the hole?
Oh, maybe.
I'm so sorry. Like I said, the auto captions are so bad. But yes, Emmy, the cops, that's the theory, is the cops basically fed him this story. And I know people are, I don't know. I know that there's always like the comments of, oh, like cops are just doing their jobs. But these detectives were known to be not criminal, but so
Shady.
for instance, shady. So Ritz, so they're gonna they'll introduce the cops, but one of the detectives was Bill Ritz. He was in charge of a case, or sorry, he was one of 8 Baltimore police officers named in a case where a federal jury awarded $15 million to a plaintiff for a wrongful conviction. The question, so he was looking for an alibi. Why not? Yeah. And it even goes deeper than that, Emmy. On some instances, you'll hear some tapping. Like if Jay can't remember something, you'll hear tapping in the background. Like somebody's, tapping at something. So wasn't there issue with the audio? There are stop spots where yeah. And then there was also a time where he went to give a statement, I guess. He signed in, and this was before it was mandatory to have video in interrogation rooms. He signed into, the police station at like 3:00, let's say, and then 6:00, 3 hours later, is when the tape starts rolling. So what happened in those 3 hours? In my opinion, they were getting the story straight.
Yeah,
making
I
sure
was going to
everything.
say a lot of talking's going on in those 3 hours.
Yeah.
I think they wanted to close the case, so they were just looking for anything. It was easy.
Yes. Yeah, that's something that I've heard, is that a lot of cases, especially in places that have, higher murder rates and things like that, the detectives try and what do they call them? File pushers. They just want to push the files off their desk.
And Baltimore is definitely one of those cities.
Wasn't there a whole show about it? Was it?
Yeah, The Wire.
Wire. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
6 inches at the most. It wasn't very deep at all.
Who did most of the digging?
It was
both of you.
Yeah.
Equal work.
I wouldn't say that, but yeah.
Okay.
So those are the key points. Adnan told Jay in advance he was going to do it. He did it. They buried her. Jay's story wasn't just the foundation of the state's case against Adnan. It was the state's case against Adnan. And the picture Jay drew, it's cold. I mean, he's not describing a crime of passion here. This is something much darker. To methodically map out the death of your friend, to strangle her with your own hands, so close up like that.
Yes, Evil Queen. So HBO did a 4-part documentary on this case. It was very eye-opening. They figured out some other things that were very oh gosh, just things that would have made this case completely different.
That would mean Adnan wasn't just a killer, but a master liar and manipulator. A psychopath, probably. Adnan's in a maximum security prison in Western Maryland. He calls me at my request about twice a week. He talks to me from a bank of 8 payphones in the rec hall, a pretty large room where other guys are sitting at tables with metal seats attached to them, playing chess or cards or using the microwave or watching TV. It can get a little loud sometimes. Once I asked if all 8 phones were always occupied, and he said usually not, because guys who've been in for a long time, often they have no one to call. When I first met Adnan in person, I was struck by 2 things. He was way bigger.
Okay, she kinda goes into Adnan and, like, what he looks like. I'm gonna kinda go through to where he says, like, the one thing that he can't get past is that nobody can give, like, solid proof or anything of, why he would have done this, you know Yes, thank you. So flow. So, Cash, this is about an old case from 1999, the murder of Hae Min Lee, the, I believe, wrongful conviction of Adnan Syed. So that also did not give Hae Min Lee justice because her killer is most likely still out there. S Town was really good. I agree. It's pretty short, but very good. Yep, Serial did emerge from This American Life. Yep. Okay. So this is Adnan. Like Sarah said, on the phone, in the maximum security prison, they spoke a lot on the phone, and, so he's kind of explaining, like, this why he can't get his head around why people think he did this.
So that when they broke up for good, sometime before Christmas break of senior year, he says he was sad for sure, but not obsessed or anything.
I just sometimes wish like they could like look into my brain and see how I really felt about her. And no matter what else someone would say, they would see, man, this guy had no ill will towards it. Whatever the motivation is to kill someone, it didn't exist in me. You know what I mean? No one can ever say why. People can say why. Oh man, he was mad, this, that, or the other, but no one can ever come with any type of proof or anecdote or anything to ever say that I was ever mad at her, that I was ever angry with her, that I ever threatened her. You know, that's the only thing I can really hold on to. That is like my only firm handhold in this whole thing is that no one's ever been able to prove it. No one ever has been able to provide any shred of evidence that it had anything but friendship towards it, like love and respect for her. That's at the end of the day, man. The only thing I can ever say is, man, I had no reason to kill her.
He's adamant about this. You can hear it, right? He's staunch. The problem is, when you ask Adnan to go back and tell his version of what happened that day, to refute Jay's story, everything becomes a lot mushier. Yes, he hung out with Jay on the 13th, both during and after school, but he doesn't remember exactly where they went or what they did or what time it was. Here's what he's got. January 13th unfolded like any other day, a normal, mostly uneventful day. He says there are a couple of things that do stand out, though. That day was Stephanie's birthday. Stephanie was one of Adnan's best friends and also Jay's girlfriend. Adnan had gotten Stephanie a birthday present, a stuffed reindeer, which he'd given to her in second period, Miss Efron's English class.
And
Ooh, Emmy, Miss Efron. I know you like the Zac Efron. So yeah, Adnan goes into his day. He basically was like, he wanted to make sure Jay got Stephanie a present because Stephanie was like, Adnan's best girlfriend. Um, and so part of me is like, Adnan, if you just minded your own business, maybe we wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been here. But he was trying to look out for his friend Stephanie, make sure she got a birthday present. So he let Jay borrow his car to go get the present and was like, pick me up after track practice because he had track practice, he said around 3 or 3:30. So after school got out at 2:15. He would probably hang out on school campus, go to the library, which the public library, this will come back into the story, is basically on the school's campus. It's like in the same parking lot.
Or 3:30ish. So it didn't start right after school. So there was a period of time of almost like an hour and some change. That was kind of free time.
This hour and change after school, this is the crucial window. This is the time when the state says Hae was killed. School got out at 2:15. People remember seeing her after her last class, heading to her car. According to Jay's story and the cell phone records, she was dead by 2:36 p.m. So sometime in those 21.
Okay, and I also want to say that they're saying that according to the cell phone records by 2:36, Hae was dead. However, the cell phone records, incoming calls don't have phone numbers attached to them. So it just says incoming call. I also have a problem kind of with that. How do they know that incoming call, where that incoming call is coming from? They're saying it's a payphone, but without actually linking that, like, I don't know. That's just how my mind is. I want to be able to see that they linked the number to that payphone. Right?
Yep, to an actual area. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So they're like using that as, concrete evidence, but there's no incoming call number.
And there's definitely no nothing's concrete about it. So
no. And they even
and
get
even
into
when you just mentioned the library, there's a whole nother cluster F about that too.
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of speed through a little bit of this so that we can get to the craziest part about this story and the fact that there was an actual alibi for Adnan that was never looked into. Yes. An alibi that was never looked into.
Can you
Make that
imagine?
make sense. All right. So I believe this is the part where they're explaining that Rabia was finally kind of grasped that the whole case hung on these 21 minutes. So they're saying school got out at 2:15. Adnan got into Hae's car and they drove to Best Buy. He strangled her, went to the payphone that nobody can actually prove existed. And then called Jay to come pick him up. So that's what they're saying is the 21 minutes. So Rabia visits Adnan in lockup after he's convicted of first-degree murder. And this is kind of what their conversation goes like.
She disappeared in January. In March, you're asking me, like, where were you after school for 20 minutes on a specific day? Like, no, all the days are the same to me,
But then he mentions that there was this one girl, an alibi girl.
He's like, the only thing I could offer is, he's like, I remember, he's like, there's a girl I go to school with who, her name's Asia McClain. He's like, right after I got arrested, she wrote me a couple of letters. And she said she also went to see my family. And she said she specifically remembers me being at the library, at the public library, right after school.
The Woodlawn Public Library is just across the parking lot from Woodlawn High School. It's not technically part of the campus, but it might as well be.
He said, I gave those letters to Christina Gutierrez, to my attorney. He's like, but, apparently it didn't really check out. So he's like, I don't know. So they're not helpful to us. So this is the first time I heard of this girl, Asia McClain. I had never heard of her before. Nobody had mentioned her before.
Were you like floored? Like, wait, what? I mean, what? Like,
I wasn't floored at the time because I thought if this girl wrote and the attorney, what criminal defense attorney is not going to check out a potential alibi?
And so this is kind of why they believe that his attorney botched the case, because who isn't going to go check out a potential alibi? And she wrote him a letter. She wrote a letter. And they'll get into this, but they believe why Asia believes or remembers a lot of the things that happened is she wrote everything down. And they show her in the HBO documentary and she has her notes. She has like the yellow legal pad, like note paper with all of her notes that she's like photocopied so that she doesn't lose them. Like
She's got binders.
Yeah, she's got binders, guys. Oh gosh, but she's amazing because she wrote it all down, and so she's like, and we'll hear from her in just a second. But yeah, um his defense attorney knew about the letter, but didn't go and check it out. Okay, so Sarah's now gonna kind of explain what was in Asia's letter.
Letters to Rabia, and here's what she reads. The first letter, the first of two, is dated March 1st, 1999. That is one day after Adnan was arrested. At the top of the letter, she notes, I just came from your house an hour ago. Dear Adnan, I hope I spelled it right. I'm not sure if you remember talking to me in the library on January 13th, but I remember chatting with you. She says, quote, we aren't really close friends, but I want you to look into my eyes and tell me of your innocence. If I ever find otherwise, I will hunt you down and whip your ass. Okay, friend? At the bottom, she added a little note. My boyfriend and his best friend remember seeing you there too. That's letter number one. Then the next day, on March 2nd, she writes Adnan another letter. This one's typed, it's chattier. She talks about the gossip in school, the bits and pieces of evidence about the crime that are circulating, what the students are saying, what the teachers are saying, about her visit to his house. Quote, your brothers are nice. I don't think I met your mother. I think I met your dad. Does he have a big gray beard? They gave me and Justin soda and cake. There's a whole bunch of people at your house. I didn't know who they were. I also didn't know that Muslims take their shoes off in the house. Thank God they didn't make me take mine off. My stinky feet probably would have knocked everyone out cold. Why haven't you told anyone about talking to me in the library? She asks him. Did you think it was unimportant? You didn't think that I would remember? Or did you just totally forget yourself?
Okay, I'm going to kind of fast forward through that. So one thing I noticed while listening through this, the 30th time that I did, is that Adnan and Asia kind of have the same story about what they talked about in the library, which I know. I mean, I don't think I'll look up her letters because they are posted somewhere. Um, but I don't think she ever talks about this stuff in the letter. But they both kind of say that they talked about the same thing, if that makes sense. So I think Rabia goes into this part.
That day after school, I went to the public library, and Adnan was sitting at a computer checking email or something, and I sat down next to him. We started chatting, and Adnan was a very popular boy in school. He's handsome and popular with the ladies. So she was speaking to him, and her boyfriend shows up a little bit later with a friend. And she said her boyfriend was really angry at her because he's like, why are you talking to him? As high school kids, why are you talking to him? Is he hitting on you?
And I apologize. So Robbie is actually saying, because she went and found Asia, because she's like, okay, what the fuck's going on? What, there's an alibi that wasn't heard from. So she goes and talks to Asia, and this is kind of what she tells Asia. Or sorry, Asia tells her. And so basically, Asia sees Adnan. I think they talk about, hey, he says they just broke up, but whatever. And when Asia's boyfriend gets there, he's like, who are you talking to? Why are you talking to this guy? Okay. And then, so let me get to this part.
In it, she says she and Adnan spoke for about 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay. So then Rabia gets Asia to write an affidavit. So basically so that they can put it in the file and then possibly can ask for post-conviction relief based on the Asia affidavit, because she basically had an alibi for him.
That's while she was waiting for her boyfriend to give her a ride. Quote, we left around 2:40, unquote. Remember, Hae is supposed to be dead by 2:36. And then the kicker. No attorney has ever contacted me about January 13th, 1999 and the above information. So, benefit of the doubt for a second. Maybe Adnan never actually showed the letters to Cristina Gutierrez, his attorney. Sure, he said he did, but who knows? Well, I know. Deep inside Gutierrez's notes on the case, I have boxes and boxes of such stuff. There's this in her handwriting. Asia plus boyfriend saw him in library 2:15 to 3:15. Then there's another note dated July 13th. It's more than 4 months after Adnan's arrest. This is written by one of Gutierrez's law clerks who visited Adnan in jail. Quote, Asia McClain saw him in the library at 3. Asia boyfriend saw him too. Library may have cameras.
Okay, so this is all in the notes from the attorney. However, they never talked to Asia. And even Asia says no, not even like the state came and spoke to her. I don't know if the state knew about it, but you'd think his attorney would. Thanks, so Flo, for link in Asia's letters so you can see them for your guys' self.
You're welcome. It's kind of cool to look at them.
I know, especially the handwritten ones and everything. So
yeah, that link will take you directly to the handwritten ones.
Did you find it on the Undisclosed Wiki?
Yes. Yep.
Yep. So Undisclosed is Rabia's podcast. And yeah, that wiki has almost all of the files that are known, pictures. So if you guys do go to that website, it has a lot of information. So basically Sarah is like, is there security cameras in the library? They go and check. The lady at the library basically says, and this is a problem I have with a lot of security footage that I hear about, because I feel like it's always the same story, that security footage isn't kept for more than a week or possibly a month in most cases. So sometimes by the time they're going to look for the video footage or videotape or security footage, it's not even there anymore. So the lady at the library says that they had a Monday tape, a Tuesday tape, a Wednesday tape, and then they just
reused it.
Yeah, they just kept reusing them. So even if Adnan's attorney, once they got Asia's letter, ran out to the library to see if there was footage, it wouldn't have been there because they had already recorded over it. So they go into the fact that they have the Asia affidavit. They try to find Asia in order to go to Adnan's post-conviction relief hearing. To basically say, look, we have this alibi witness. She was never heard of. We need to either, have a retrial or, give Adnan some sort of post-conviction relief. But Asia gets spooked. She thinks that Adnan's guilty. She says that she trusts the courts to do their due diligence. We'll hear that in just a bit. But she says, I figured, they had evidence, they had DNA, he was where he needed to be. And Adnan's attorney sent a private investigator to go find her to see if she would testify. And she got spooked, saying, a convicted murderer is looking for me and found me. I want nothing to do with this, which I could see where she's coming from there. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, but then I get confused because it's like, why write him letters and act like you're on his team? And you know what I mean?
Right. No, totally. Yeah. And, they go back and forth with, maybe did Asia just do this to insert herself?
For clout, yeah.
For clout, yeah. And so because she doesn't go to the hearing, they actually put the prosecutor from Adnan's case on the stand, and he says that Asia told him that she was pressured into writing the affidavit and she got pressure from the family and all this stuff. So actually, here's that part.
Turns out that Asia had done the very thing they dreaded. Asia had called one of the prosecutors in Adnan's case, a guy named Kevin Urich, and undermined her own statement. This is from a recording of the hearing. Mr. Urich is testifying on the witness stand.
Urich, how did you learn that the defendant had filed this petition?
A young lady named Asia called me.
And what did she say?
She was concerned because she was being asked questions about an affidavit she'd written back at the time of the trial. She told me that she'd only written it because she was getting pressure from the family, and she basically wrote it to please them and get them off her back.
I don't know what happened to her and why she would do this.
So, yeah, so that was the prosecutor from Adnan's case, and said, Asia said that she just did it because she was under pressure, wanted the family off her back, which we will find is not the truth. So this is why I have so many problems with this whole case, because nobody's being truthful. So let's see. So Sarah's like, I gotta find Asia. I need to, figure out if this was actually true. This is where they go to the library. I do want to play this. So Asia had mentioned that her boyfriend and his friend picked her up from the library together. So Sarah's also trying to track down Gerard and Derek, who was Asia's boyfriend at the time. So she actually finds Gerard, and I think his interaction with Sarah is one of my favorites of Serial. So she finds Gerard. Did I get
Are they?
No.
Bummer. All right. We got nothing.
Then there was the mystery of Asia's boyfriend, Derek, and his friend, Gerard. All winter and spring, every time I went to Baltimore, I went to Derek's mom's house looking for him, and to Gerard's window tinting business. And then finally...
All right, so you are Gerard Johnson.
Yes, I am.
You don't know how excited we are to be talking to you. I've been looking for you for like 4 months. You didn't do anything, but we were hoping maybe you remembered this moment. On January 13th, 1999, do you have any memory, by any miracle, that you went to Woodlawn Public Library branch near Woodlawn High School to pick up Asia McClain with your friend Derek?
I have no idea. Asia McClain. Is that a person or a book?
It's a person.
I'm sorry, but that's like my favorite part. Is that a person or a book?
He's
He
quite
didn't
the
even
character.
he didn't even remember his friend. I mean, I guess I wouldn't remember all my friends, like ex-boyfriends and girlfriends from high school, but
Yeah, I don't remember. I was thinking about it when he said that, and I was like, I don't remember a lot of people. I mean, you're friends with them on Facebook or whatever, but like if I had to like think back, I can't just
names.
name them off the top of my head.
Right.
I definitely
I
need
know.
a photo.
Yes, yeah. Photos are very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that a person or a book? So yeah, that was my my little funny. So she also finds Derek. Derek basically is like, Asia wouldn't have inserted herself into this, just to do it. She's not that kind of person. And then so Sarah's still trying to find Asia. She writes a letter. I don't think Asia ends up getting the letter, and then she follows up with an email um to Asia, and that's when Asia calls her back kind of confused. Like, what
I
the
think
heck?
the letter was sent to the wrong mailing address, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what it says. I had the wrong address on the screen. Okay, so we're gonna hear. So Asia calls Sarah, and so we finally get to hear from Asia and her side of the story. Hey, Ash, thanks for being here. Which kind of just blows my mind even more because of what she says. Okay, so let's hear.
But she was calling because I'd followed up weeks later with a one-line email, and she was responding to that, a little confused.
This is crazy. I mean, I have a couple minutes if you want to chat about it.
I recorded our conversation on the cell, which is why the sound quality is so bad. Sorry about that. Asia is now a 33-year-old stay-at-home mother, and she has not spent the last 15 years worrying about Adnan and whether he's guilty.
I trust the court systems to do their due diligence. And I was never questioned. I was never informed of anything pertaining to the case.
So see, she was never questioned. So that's another thing. You'd think that, as a normal person that thinks that the detectives and the prosecutors are trying to get justice, she's thinking, well, if my part of the story was important, I would have heard from them.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because she's a big part of the story.
Big part of the story. Oh.
I don't know why he was convicted.
Asia said she was spooked when the private investigator came to her house. I don't know if that's why she didn't testify at the hearing or why she made the call to the prosecutor, but she told me that when she got the knock at the door, quote, that was not cool. Because to her, if Adnan did do it, quote, the last thing you want is a murderer being pissed off at you, knowing where you live. But she had a remarkably clear memory of what happened on January 13th, 1999. She had an internship at the time, and so she got out of school much earlier than everyone else. Derek was supposed to come get her at the library along with Gerard, but they were very late. She remembers seeing Adnan come in after Woodlawn let out for the day.
Adnan came in, he sat at the table, and like we weren't like really close friends or anything like that, but you know, we knew each other, and you know, he chatted or whatever, and I can't remember. I think I must have asked him how he was doing or whatever, and he said fine, and you know, he told me that him and Hae had broke up, and I was like, oh, well, that's a bummer, and I was like, what happened? And he was like, oh, well, she is seeing this other guy, some white dude, and you know, but he was pretty chill about it. He was just like, you know, well, if you know she doesn't want to be with me, then that's fine.
Okay, so Asia's saying the same day that everybody's saying he went on this murderous rampage, you know, he was pretty chill.
I just wish the best for her and that kind of attitude. And
I'm not sure why Asia's memory of this interaction is so clear all these years later. My best guess is that because she wrote it down at the time, in those letters and then the affidavit, that the details somehow stuck.
Do you remember what time you were talking this would have happened in the library? Do you remember what time that conversation would have happened?
I don't, because I know school let out around 2:15, so it was probably around 2:30.
Okay, so Asia's saying that they were talking probably around 2:30. And then the state is saying that he killed Hae by 2:36.
Doesn't match up.
Yeah.
Because you had said you got out of school earlier than other people. So were you there? Were you at the library before 2:15?
Oh yeah, I had been at the library for a few hours.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was pretty pissed when Derek showed up, and you know, and he asked me who Adnan was, and you know, jealous teenager boy language. He's like, you know, who the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, don't even start with me, because you know, you're a few hours late.
Hey, Brace, you mean this this podcast came out in, I think, 2014. So she said she was working on it for about a year. So I imagine a lot of these interviews happened in 2013, which is still about, 14 years after all of this happened.
Don't worry about who that is, you know. I remember that day because that was the day that it snowed.
Were there snow days after that? Do you remember?
I want to say there was, because I think that was like the first snow of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have even remembered if it hadn't have been for the snow and the whole, you know. I just remember being so pissed about Derek being late and then getting snowed in at his house, and it was the first snow of that year.
The snow is important. Hae disappeared on a Wednesday. That night, there was a huge ice storm, which is unusual in Maryland. It ended up being a state emergency, and school was closed for the rest of the week. Asia started asking me questions.
So that's another thing that I think is, kind of important, is that school was canceled for the whole week. So Hae goes missing on a Wednesday. Then there's snow days Thursday, Friday, and then they had Saturday, Sunday off. And then I think there was even like a school maybe holiday, or maybe it was like President's Day or something. Um, and they had the Monday off. So it was almost a full week. And again, in 1999, there was no MySpace, there was no Facebook. Um, you basically saw your friends at school unless you had a relationship where you would call them or page them, I guess in these instances. But um that kind of is also why I feel like there was a little bit of a delay. I mean, I know Hayes' family reported her missing and everything, but I don't think her friends really realized at this time, like, what really happened.
Questions about the case. Wasn't there DNA evidence? And what exactly was Jay's part in the whole thing? She wasn't sure Adnan was guilty. She said things I've now heard from so many people since. He seemed like he cared about Hae. He didn't seem angry or upset. I thought there was more proof.
Even that day, it did, I didn't walk away thinking like, oh, I just started something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want to base his innocence off of his composure at that moment, I would say he's innocent. But, I mean, I'm 32 years old now, and I know that, there's people out there capable of heinous acts that can keep a calm demeanor.
Yeah.
And I know that there are people who flip out on a moment's notice and do something that, they regret for the rest of their lives. So I don't really.
Yeah.
Even now, it would be nice if there was some technicality, something that would prove his innocence. Great, one less evil person I've met in my life,
But I think Asia, like, you might be that technicality. Do you see what I mean?
Okay, I got the chills. That part always gives me the chills. So Asia said it'd be great if there was some sort of technicality that could prove his innocence. And Sarah says, Asia, you might be that technicality. You may be the thing that can prove his innocence.
That would be crazy if you were that person.
Yes. And so they'll go into why. I know I kind of said it before, but Sarah explains it all.
I mean, like, if you're saying you saw him on this day at that time, that means the state's timeline for their whole theory of the case doesn't make any sense.
It's a possibility.
Because they're saying he was in the car with her at the very time that you're saying, no, I saw him at the library and we were talking. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's exactly the window where they're saying she was murdered.
In case you couldn't hear that, it was a sigh, and I completely understand that sigh. It's how I feel a lot of the time. Because I talk to Adnan regularly, and he just doesn't seem like a murderer. A few minutes after I hung up with Asia, Adnan called on schedule.
Hey, Sarah. How you doing?
Okay, and this is such a heartbreaking part. So Sarah's super excited. She spoke to Asia. She thinks that, like, this is a slam dunk, like, we figured it out. But poor Adnan knows it's too late.
I'm good. I was just talking to Asia McClain.
Okay.
You don't sound very excited.
I had well, I mean, I really,
This was not the reaction I expected. I felt like I'd just interviewed an ivory-billed woodpecker. But when I told Adnan what Asia remembered, instead of being excited, Adnan said it was heartbreaking.
I mean, on a personal level, I'm happy because, in a sense, it's, that I'm not making this up. And at least if nothing else, it kind of like, at least someone other than Rabia knows that, this did take place. Anything that can kind of support what I'm saying to be the truth, that I didn't do this, is great. But from a legal perspective, it's like, I wish she would have came to this realization maybe like a year and a half ago.
So K-Brace, so the theory is that Adnan asked Hae for a ride home. So Hae, I guess, drove him to Best Buy, and that's where he murdered her. But I'm also thinking, okay, Hae's like, an athletic girl. Um, I don't see, I don't know, I don't see how he
I
would
don't
have been
see
like,
it.
well, what was that?
I said I don't see it happening.
Well, because he would have had to have made her drive to Best Buy.
Exactly.
And
You don't
everybody,
think she would have been like, "What are we doing
why?
here?" Yeah.
Yeah, like why do you want to go to Best Buy? Like a big thing that Hae always had to do was pick up her cousin from kindergarten after school. So yeah, it's just like I don't know. I don't know how he would have convinced her to be like, you know, go to Best Buy. Let's hang out in the parking lot.
Talk her into it without
Oh,
any pushback. It's kind of, I don't know, it's weird.
exactly. Thanks, Ash. That's actually a compliment. Thank you so much. So yeah, so they're basically like, it's too late. She or basically in the eyes of the court, she's already taken back this statement. Um, and so let's see. Okay, I'll just keep playing it.
You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, it's too late. I'm sorry. I mean, I definitely appreciate it, and I definitely kind of hear the elation in your voice, but now I feel like I punctured your balloon.
No. I mean, I totally, I see what you're saying. I hadn't thought about it in that way.
When I told Robbie I'd talked to Asia, she immediately burst into tears. Because they were all correct. It was too late. The judge ruled on Adnan's petition a few weeks before I spoke to Asia. Denied. The judge wrote in his opinion that Cristina Gutierrez's decision not to use Asia McClain as an alibi witness was strategic. After all, Asia's original letters didn't specify an exact time, and Gutierrez could have reasonably concluded that Asia was offering to lie in order to help Adnan. And finally, he wrote, Asia's letter contradicted Adnan's own alibi. Asia says she saw him at the public library, but Adnan said he was on the school campus the whole afternoon. Maybe the judge didn't understand that Woodlawn Library is basically part of the campus. But anyway, Asia's story then is legally worthless. A witness who says she saw you at the exact moment when the state contends you were strangling a young woman in a car is worthless. A few days after I spoke to Asia, she wrote me an email. I've been thinking a lot about Adnan, she wrote. All this time, I thought the courts proved it was Adnan that killed her. I thought he was where he deserved to be. Now I'm not so sure. Hae was our friend too, and it sucks feeling like you don't know who really killed your friend. Hae was the sweetest person ever. If he didn't kill Hae, we owe it to him to try to make that clear. And if he did kill her, then we need to put this to rest. I just hope that Adnan isn't some sick bastard just trying to manipulate his way out of jail. I wrote back, believe me, I'm on exactly the same page. Coming up this season.
All right, guys. Well, that was the episode for Serial episode 1. I do want to just bring up just so we can see how close the library was to Woodlawn High School. Okay. Woodlawn High School. Okay, there it is. Okay. So, there is Woodlawn High School. This is the library. So, basically shares the same parking lot almost as the high school. So that's why Sarah said, I guess the judge didn't realize that the library is basically part of the high school campus, because the judge denied the motion on the Asia affidavit because Adnan said he was on campus the whole day, but it's basically the campus. So, oh, wow. How you guys doing? Yeah, not far at all.
I can't wait for the next episode.
I know. I'm glad you guys found this interesting because, like, I don't know if I'd mentioned this before, but this case really made me, I don't know. It really launched my true crime kind of research perspective of like, this shit ain't right. Something is wrong. Something smells
fishy.
Something is fishy around here. So I think that might be like the longest episode. I think the rest of them are a little bit shorter. So we can, definitely keep going if you guys want to learn more about this case. Because like I said, there are so many twists and turns that it just, I think somebody had said that, yeah, this is just one of those really messy, crazy
perplexing cases. Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
And I find it really interesting too, like with all the stuff that went wrong or they could have done better with the justice system.
Yes.
Like how it works, the intertwinings
sure.
of everything.
Yeah. And it's like, I think wrongful convictions are something that is plaguing our country. There's so many people sitting in prison, even on, death row that don't deserve to be there. And by wrongfully convicting people, we lose sight of the real victim because they're creating more victims.
100%. Yeah. Those people can't get that time back, and time is the most precious commodity we have.
Yeah. He went into prison at 17. He got out, I think he was 41 or 42. So imagine losing that whole part of your
The
life.
best years of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so sad.
Crazy.
And like I said, if Adnan is really not guilty, then Hae's killer's still out there. They've never been caught. So,
yeah.
Well,
Lisa
thank you,
said
SoFlo.
even if he confessed to it, double jeopardy applies, which I forgot about. She's right about that. Oh, you're welcome. I love coming up here with you.
Thanks. I love when you're up here with me.
Yay. And I think Sinner and Emmy are going live in an hour maybe? She should drop their link. So
Yep, Emmy and Sinner are going live in an hour. If a mod wants to drop their link, that would be great. But yeah, we will continue with this story because even past Serial, I could probably talk about this case, for days. So
yeah, no, I'm into it. I'm ready for it.
All right.
All right, guys. Have a nice Saturday evening.
Yes, have a good Saturday. You have fun. I know you have some fun plans tonight. So shake your tail feather.
I will. This mod is on her phone. Unacceptable, Lisa. Unacceptable. We're docking your pay.
Right. Thanks for being here, Evil Queen. This story, like I said, is a frustrating one. So
yeah.
All right. Well, make sure
All right, guys.
so you don't miss our next coverage of episode 2. But I hope you guys have a great night.
All right. See you guys around.
Bye.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time,